Welcome to Tech Smarter. My name is Abbie Richie. I'm your host, and this is where we talk with the operators, the innovators, and the investors who are shaping the future of aging services. Today's episode is brought to us by LeadingAge Arizona, and Tech Smarter is a production of the Smarter service. Now, if you happen to be a senior living operator and you're struggling with the demand of tech needs within your community, I would love for you to reach out to me and let us explore how we can professionalize this type of support for your community and for your residents. No doubt they need it. I want to go ahead and bring my guest on today. We have Keren Etkin. Welcome to Tech Smarter, Keren.
Hi, Abby. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You are welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on. We've talked several times over the past couple of years, and so I always love to hear your perspective on what's happening in the age tech arena. Before we jump into our questions, could you give us, a description of who you are, how you got into this, and what you're looking forward to in this area, please?
Sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Keren Etkin. I am a gerontologist by training. So, I started my career in the nonprofit organization sort of type of space, serving older adults who live in the community. And then I transitioned into tech. I was a founding team member at one startup, and then I co-founded another startup. And during this time, I also launched a Gerontechnologist as a media platform that covers the global age tech ecosystem. And I feel very, very fortunate to be both an insider and an outsider looking in at this ecosystem because it has evolved so dramatically over the past few years, and it is still growing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it grow and seeing it evolve and seeing more older adults adopt technology, cutting edge technology. And yeah, I think digital orientation and what you're doing with the Smarter service is a really important building block of making tech accessible and available to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, it is a growing ecosystem. It is a growing field. It is a niche that is just exploding in so many ways. And I also feel honored to be involved in it and to see it grow so much over the past 5, 6 years. When we talked originally about some things that we could discuss, some topics, that recent AARP Ziegler report that came out that really gives us a clear look at the age tech landscape, where operators think they should be investing versus where the actual resident demand is. It's truly a critical reality check. I want to ask you what you think is the biggest disconnect between what you see happening with senior living executives about what they believe and the immediate practical reality of what older adults are ready to use today in terms of the technology.
Sure. So I think there is this common misconception in the general public that older adults aren't using technology or are scared of technology. And, people who work in senior living are part of the general public. So if there is stigma, if there is misconception, it's very hard to shake that off, right? We even see like internalized ageism, right? Because if you've been ageist throughout your life, if society has taught you that aging is bad, it's really hard to shake that off when you yourself start to grow older, right? So there is this notion, the misconception that older adults aren't tech savvy or aren't using technology. And you and I know this not to be true. And thankfully, now, thanks to AARP's annual Tech Trends and the 50 Plus report, we have the data to back it up. And thanks to Pew Research Center and other organizations who really keep publishing fantastic reports on tech adoption among older adults. And what we see is that older adults are not just able and willing to adopt technology, but they're doing so in growing numbers year over year. They have multiple devices. You yourself have told me that people move into senior living with multiple devices. And, sometimes even the staff doesn't know how to provide tech support for that because it's really hard to keep up if it's not your job to keep up with technology. It's really hard to keep up. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I remember initially when I was just starting to teach classes at senior living communities, I could see technology being implemented in real time. For instance, I would teach a class and I would see, like this was back in the day, that the majority of my students were using iPhone. I think it was the iPhone 10 that did not have the home button on it. And at that time, I still had an iPhone 6 or 7 or 8. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like they're way ahead of me. I need to up my game and start learning how to use this next range of technology. The same thing happened when I started seeing more and more residents show up wearing Apple Watches. It was, it was a revelation to me that, hey, this is the demand. This is what they want. This is the thing that I now need to teach, and so that I can support their needs. And it was really like a big shift, thinking that, here I am on the cutting edge of technology, and yet they're introducing this technology to me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the great things that Apple has done is to incorporate features in existing products that serve older adults, like fall detection and gait assessment. They've incorporated those in the Apple Watch and in the iPhone, and they've done it in a way that doesn't like introduce stigma. And it doesn't make people feel bad about themselves, because who doesn't want to wear an Apple Watch? I mean, it makes you look cool, it makes you feel cool, right? And having a fall detection feature is like an added bonus. So like, why not utilize that?
100%. It's only as good as the person who's wearing it. And if there's stigma associated with a pendant, for instance, or one of those bracelets that they actually make you wear at a lot of communities, if there's a stigma associated with it, then it's not collecting the kind of data and supporting your needs the way you want it to be. And this also reminds me of another piece that what we're doing internally at the Smarter service within every community that we work in is that we gather data, and then we share this data with the operators to let them know, yeah, you know what, your residents are interested in learning more. Your residents have questions about your engagement platform more than anything else, for instance, or your residents are frustrated with Wi-Fi connectivity. So we're always collecting data so that we can better serve the population of residents.
Absolutely.
Talking about major trends, from wearables to AI, all of these things tend to go through some kind of cycle. And while leaders are definitely looking for a clear ROI on introducing technology, sometimes things really get diluted by a complex solution that's not solving the core problem within a community. Where should a senior living community start their AI journey?
So this is a great question. And what we've seen in the recent Ziegler Linkage Fund and LeadingAge cast report, by the way, if there's anyone from this team watching this show, thank you so much for publishing this report. It was one of the most interesting ones that I've read this year. So what we've seen in this report is that what happened, probably due to the fact that most offices use Microsoft software, is that people in senior living have been adopting GitHub as Copilot, right? Or the Microsoft Copilot as like their go-to LLM. And on top of this, they're also using ChatGPT. So I think for many people who work a desk job and have to write a lot or create slide decks as part of their job, these solutions are a game changer in terms of productivity. And when you are sitting at your computer and Microsoft like hands it to you on a silver platter, it's really a no-brainer to try it out. And then people like, they see the light and they see, wow, creating this slide deck last year from the same like spreadsheet took me a whole day, and now I got it done in 1 hour, and I can like go out and like do other stuff, talk to the residents, go on a coffee break, go home to be with my family. And it is really a game changer for people who work office jobs all over the world. And senior living is no different. We have people working office jobs.
Yeah. So, it's funny because when you talk about this, it reminds me of working with residents and teaching them about AI and teaching them about ChatGPT and how they can use that and apply that to their lives. One thing that we love to do is just destigmatize some of these terms and the newer technology so that a resident can start adopting it and not be afraid of it.
Absolutely. And there is no, I mean, with any new type of technology, I understand why people, or why some people might be sort of on the fence. But I feel that with LLMs, because we have so many products that were launched roughly around the same time that have free versions that anyone can try, I feel like it's a relatively low effort thing to try out. So you don't have to go out to your house to buy anything, you don't have to install anything, you don't have to pay for anything. You just try and you see whether it brings you any value. And for some people it may be getting their job done more productively, and for others it may be writing fiction or poetry or whatever. But I think the barrier to adoption here has been lowered compared to almost any other technology that we've seen over the past few decades.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I want to discuss the powerful ability for storytelling and also reminiscing within AI. I was exposed to a certain new technology called Eternos.ai, and within this technology, what someone is able to do is really capture their life story as well as answer about 100 questions in their own voice so that when they pass, their loved one can ask this digital AI form any questions, whether it's about their philanthropy or their entrepreneurism or their family history. But to have that recalled in your loved one's voice is amazing. Have you seen any other type of AI systems like this that help with storytelling and reminiscing?
So I believe that virtually all of the storytelling, the digital storytelling solutions today utilize AI in the backend. And so, yes, some of them will recall, like will be able to respond to questions in your loved one's voice after they pass. I've already also seen one that sort of was able to capture their image and produce a video. That was a couple of years ago. I bet that this is way more advanced now with the AI tools that we have now. So I've seen multiple such solutions, and I think that like when someone wants to leave something behind, it's great that they have multiple options, right? Because up until not so long ago, your best option would be to sit down and write down your life story, or write down with a ghostwriter if you could afford one, and like really print out books to give to your family. But in this day and age, with people's attention span is so short, I don't know how many people sit down to read the book that their parent or grandparent left them. But having sort of a digital way to ask questions, I feel like that would be more accessible to more people.
Yeah, likewise. The other aspect that's developed tremendously is social robots. And I know that you're an expert in this field, and sometimes robots can definitely fill the role of the non-human tasks from engagement to companionship. But with an innovator and an operator, how can they position these robots within their community to benefit the residents?
So one of the things that I think there is sort of a misconception of social robots, that they are built to replace humans, when that couldn't be further from the truth. Social robots, whether they're like an objectoid or whether they're shaped like a pet, they're really designed to provide some sort of companionship and comfort when humans are not available. And the reality is that we don't all have people around us 24/7 when we want to interact with someone. And interaction doesn't have to be verbal. It can be like petting your pet cat and getting some sort of feedback back. That in and of itself could provide comfort. And there is research about social robots showing that they are effective in improving well-being and sometimes even in reducing loneliness. So I mean, when it comes to senior living, I don't think there's like a one size fits all. I think it's really really depends on like the needs of the residents and what they feel that is missing in their lives, what they are willing to try out. So, I mean, I believe all of the startups who create social robots, Intuition Robotics included, the one that I was fortunate enough to be involved in, I'm sure that they're all happy to pilot and sort of allow people to try out the product to see if it works with their community's needs and if it produces the required ROI, which you so smartly mentioned in the beginning.
What were some of the biggest surprises for you in developing a social robot that you didn't recognize at first, but then saw the benefit?
Well, I have to admit that when we first started out, voice-enabled technology was fairly new. So that was like in 2016 or 2017. So I was pleasantly surprised to see how easy it was for older adults to adopt this type of technology and to adapt to this new type of interaction. Because everyone I had spoken to and every potential user I had interviewed at the time, they already had at least a desktop computer, if not a smartphone or a tablet on top of this in their home. So they knew how to use technology. And when we introduced this voice-enabled technology, it was so seamless and so intuitive to use. And I was really pleasantly surprised. You have to remember that back then, we didn't have like LLMs running in the background. So people had to use like specific voice commands if they wanted to get something out of their robot. And I'm sure that now that the whole user experience is much more intuitive and much more engaging, because now the robot can basically it's not limited to like only scripted responses as it was back in the day. Now it can technically have infinite types of responses. So you could ask it the same thing every day. You could ask it to tell you a joke every day, or to ask it to tell you the weather every day, and it will say slightly differently every day because there's LLM in the background who has like unlimited options on how to respond to each prompt.
Yeah, I am always an advocate of voice activation, because with the older population, as we age, we lose dexterity in our fingers. Our eyesight decreases. And so I am a huge advocate of voice activation. I've even seen on so many occasions how just using a microphone button on a Roku remote, for instance, makes a huge difference for navigating a smart TV. So I am a huge advocate for that. And I remember in the early days teaching my clients how to use the digital assistant and how to ask for certain things and how to just start simply by using those various commands that are built into that app. And little by little, we've seen more and more adoption in that area. So it's fascinating. It's just something I'd love to see more of, because it means that in the long run, this older adult is going to be served and supported by the use of their voice.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think people don't realize is that your hands get dry as you grow older, and that sort of makes it sometimes difficult for the touch screen to pick up what you're trying to do. And that's like, I really wish that would be fixed in the near future, because that is a challenge. You still can't do everything with your phone using voice commands.
Yeah, the fingertip and the stylus, right? Yeah. So when you're consulting with other age tech companies and you're coming into contact with other age tech innovators, what would you say are some of the most common flaws that you see in the user interface today?
So first of all, I don't believe that everyone still uses like the best practices of age-friendly design. So I get it when startups are strapped for resources and they want to just build something and launch something and get something out the door, um, using as little resource as possible. I get it. But I feel like after you've been funded, one of the sorry, one of the first things that I would do is get I'm sorry.
No problem.
One of
We
the
all get a
first things that
frog
I
in
would
our.
do,
No problem,
yeah,
Karen.
if I were building a consumer-facing product in this day and age, one of the first things I would do is work with an expert on age-friendly UX and UI design, and to just make sure that your product is doing its best to meet your users where they are, and you're not doing things that may seem cool to you or may seem reasonable to you as a younger user, but for an older user, they are confusing. And we have to keep in mind that age-friendly design doesn't just mean big buttons and big fonts. There's also color considerations, color palette considerations, microcopy considerations. And when you make your product age-friendly, you're making it better for everyone. So even if you're building a product for the general population, there is really no type of sort of challenge that you will find in the aging population that you won't find in the general population as well, right? So you have people with vision impairments in the aging population, and in the general population, we have people with low digital literacy in the aging population and also in the general population. So if you're building a product for the general population and you're making it age friendly, it's going to be better for all users. So why not do it?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's a wonderful perspective. I know from working with older adults that the user interface is huge. The just having instructions and a manual and even a diagram can make all the difference in the world. And that an older adult wants to learn things from the foundation and build upon that. And a lot of times they're just handed these devices or this technology and expected to understand how it works. And I think one of the biggest feelings that I've seen is when an innovator creates something and then they say something such as, oh, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, or it's really plug and play. And when I hear that, I just cringe inside, because I know that for an older adult, it's not plug and play. It's not as easy as 1, 2, 3. So I would love to see more development in that area myself. So
Absolutely. I think
yeah.
one of my most humbling moments in the past few years was when I was my mother-in-law asked me for some assistance on how to do something. And I wasn't able to go to her to explain it to her. So I just took a screen capture of my computer doing it, and I sent it to her. And I was so proud of myself. It's like patting myself on the back, like, good job. And then she got it and she was like, that was not helpful at all. And I was like, then it was very humbling because I realized, yes, this is not my area of expertise, and I should really sit down with her and show her how to do it next time I see her.
Yes, yeah, I've always cautioned people who are helping their parents with their technology because a lot of times we get excited about all the features that help us and are relevant to us, whereas we don't realize that an older adult is using their technology in a vastly different way than a working professional, and just I see this happening over and over and over again with a well-meaning adult child who's showing their parent how to use the technology but missing the point of how it's going to relate to them and for their purposes. So, we see stuff like this also in senior living with residents, for instance, where they typically will start with something such as they need something fixed. And so we can show them how to work their email or set up a password. And then once some of those more rudimentary issues are addressed, then they start to build on their skill level and their interest level, but really bringing it to their level and explaining it to them in a way that benefits them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've experienced that same situation you've had with your mother-in-law. Keren, having been in the H tech area and innovation for several years, you're an OG. I'm curious what you feel like would be the ultimate legacy that you hope that the current H tech movement leaves behind for the next generation of older adults.
Wow, that is such a great question. I have to think about it for a second. I really hope that the age tech movement or the age tech ecosystem would leave a legacy of, yes, you can build great products for older adults, and yes, older adults want to adopt technology, and yes, also older adults will pay for the right solution out of pocket if it brings value to their lives and it solves a problem that is on their list of problems that they want to solve at like a high priority. So we have so many great startups in this ecosystem who have been around for multiple years, who have great traction and great adoption, some with like millions of users. And that just like proves that when you're solving an actual problem, even if you're using technology to do it, then people will adopt it and people will pay for it out of pocket if needed. And that is doable. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's simple, but it is doable.
Yes, 100%. Well, Keren, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's always an inspiration to talk with you and to listen to your podcast. And for people who want to gain more information about what you're doing, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So my best places to contact me are either on LinkedIn or through the Gerontechnologist.com. Abbie, I want to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's always a pleasure chatting with you and learning from your experience.
Oh, thank you, Keren. I so appreciate that. And for those of you that are following along here today, thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for your involvement and for your comments. If there's ever someone you'd like to hear more from or learn something more about, please go ahead and reach out to me. You can always connect with me here on LinkedIn. And we wish everyone a wonderful week and holiday season. Goodbye. Thank you.